Canola School on realagriculture.com is brought to you by Alberta Canola Producers Commission, Sask Canola, and Manitoba Canola Growers. Sean Haney here with realagriculture.com. I'm at Canola Discovery Forum in Canmore, Alberta, and right now I'm joined by
Angela Bracknard with the Canola Council of Canada, based out of Manitoba.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining us today. How are you doing?
Good, Sean. Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Good. You're enjoying the forum?
Absolutely, yeah. Beautiful setting.
So you chaired a panel that talked about harvest management and harvest
That's right.
efficiency and this whole idea of trying to basically get higher yield by saving more. And we talked a lot about swathing versus straight cutting and things like that. What were some of the things that you found interesting on the panel?
Well, I think the research that Nathan Gregg at PAMI presented looking at the different headers showing not really a huge difference in losses when we compare different headers when direct combining canola was surprising, and I think probably is surprising to a lot of growers who think they can't straight cut because they don't have some sort of specialized header to do so. So that really is interesting to me. Really interesting to hear Kevin Surface from Surface Farms talk about their experience, because that's not something that I am familiar with at all, that scope of a farm, particularly in Manitoba. We don't have farms that size, right?
So he talked a lot about how because of the size of the farm and having so many, 16 combines running, they don't feel that straight cutting is really effective for them. They swath pretty much everything.
Yeah, and me as someone who really is a proponent of straight cutting, I sometimes forget those types of things, right? So he laid out why it may not work for everyone, right?
Yeah.
So,
as I was sitting there listening, I really came to the thought that came to my head is that a lot of times when we have these, we refer to it as the swathing versus straight cutting debate. And I think that maybe debate is the wrong word. We get trapped into this all or nothing scenario. It's sort of like tillage versus no till.
yep.
Right? You're either one or you're the other.
Yep.
And really, maybe that's the wrong way to look at it. Do you agree?
Oh, I absolutely agree, and I think if producers can incorporate some straight cutting with their swathing, there's going to be yield, or not necessarily yield because of the straight cutting operation, but it's going to be economically in their favor because of being able to move some of those swath acres into a straight cut acre, and then with the swath acres they can manage them better because they're not looking to manage all of their farm as a swath acre.
One of the things that I have not heard before was they're going to do more. PAM's going to do more research on matching your header to the variety. That was I didn't know we were even thinking about that.
Yeah, and it's that was really a first for me too. I think a lot of us are still at the stage of trying to match our header to a crop.
Yeah.
So that thought is really well into the future for sure.
And with that, though, you got to think about how varieties are changing so often. Trying to match your header to your variety is sort of like a pretty short-term sort of thing.
Yeah, I don't know that there's necessarily going to be a fit for that.
Yeah. So when you look at straight cutting, you said you're a big supporter of it. What are some of the people in Manitoba or your area? What successes are they finding?
Well, I would say that typically what I find is people who try it for the first time have really strong feelings either one way or the other. They either really hated it and say they won't do it again, as Nathan kind of pointed out, or they love it and they want to sell the swather. I think the big surprise for a lot of producers is how green the stock material can be when that grain is dry.
Yeah, they said it looked like it was maybe like they were silaging.
Yeah, and that's something on our farm we've been straight cutting for a long time. It's something that I've just gotten used to, so it's always funny to me when people talk about that as such a surprise. It's something that we've kind of just learned to manage. But certainly it can be frustrating and it can be slower ground speed. So it can be a huge surprise for guys who are used to going 5.5 mile an hour picking up their swaths.
And it was mentioned from the audience in some of the questions, in the fact that if the canola industry is going to achieve some of the yield or volume targets it's talking about, saving 1% more at harvest time makes a huge difference in getting to some of those goals.
Yeah, and we don't talk a lot about swath timing anymore because we've talked to death about it almost. But if you look at some of our old work back from the crop production centers, comparing swathing prior to that 60% seed color change, so 30%, let's say, to that ideal 60, 70%, you're leaving 10 up to 20% of that yield on the table. So that conversation is still very relevant today, and we shouldn't forget that. It's, straight cutting is interesting, and I do like to talk about it, but we can't forget the fundamentals and the basics of harvest management.
Well, I'm not lying to you when I tell you that once we get to late July through August, we have so many videos we've done in the canola school that have to do with swath timing. It is still a very, very prevalent topic.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you can be a grower that's been growing canola for the last 15 years, and it still is difficult.
Yeah. I think a lot of growers too feel they're not very good at it, and so that's why straight cutting also has a huge amount of appeal, because it gets them having to go through that process of guessing the swath timing.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I would agree.
Cool. Okay, well, it was great to chat with you again, and hopefully we'll get the chance to talk to you again soon.
Good, thanks, John.